Neil Magny versus Santiago Ponzinibbio. Now, what really happened in this fight? This was a fantastic display of striking ability from Santiago Ponzinibbio to completely dominate Neil Magny in every single round. You can give a 10-8 round for every single round in that fight for Santiago Ponzinibbio. And to be honest, it was a long fight, 4 rounds, but every single round was pretty much the same thing on repeat, where Santiago Ponzinibbio was throwing the jab a lot, and he always had his right hand up whenever he came in to throw because Neil Magny being a much longer fighter, Ponzinibbio has to enter on the distance, and he knew what Magny's most effective strike is. It's that jab, the 80-inch reach jab. So he always had his right hand up when he entered to parry the jab, and when he parries it, he eliminates anything that's going to intercept him, and he has a clear path down on Magny. And how precise was Ponzinibbio's jab? Constantly landing it toward the right eye of Magny. To land it at the same spot consecutively many times throughout the fight, that is extremely hard to do, especially on a moving target, especially on a longer target, and especially on a target you have to move onto to actually get in the distance. So the jab was one of the most effective weapons for Ponzinibbio. The right straight was always there as well, especially when he saw Magny potentially try to throw out his own jab or a left hook. And we all know that straight punches beat looping punches because they get on the inside of the punches and they have a shorter distance to travel. Ponzinibbio was stepping to his left whenever he set up for the right hand, and this will get him even further down the center with nothing in the way besides Neil Magny's chin. And Ponzinibbio's right straight has great form to deliver maximum power. Defensively, it can leave himself vulnerable through a counter shot or if he misses, but if he wants to deliver devastating power, he has the form. All the way from the feet to the end of the fist, everything's leaning forward and quick. Just the retraction is going to be a little bit slower. But in this fight, and his confidence in the precision of his punches, with the patience he has drawn later in his career, the drawback to this kind of punch is not as significant as it would be in the past, where he would force this punch constantly. And it's extremely fast. He was much faster than Neil Magny. And while being so fast with his hands, so powerful with his hands, and Magny's always focusing on the hands of Ponzinibbio, it opened up leg kicks. You always hear the strategy of a wrestler who has a takedown threat can potentially land strikes, land punches on the opponent because they're always thinking about the takedowns. In this case, Magny was thinking about the boxing, thinking about the punches of Ponzinibbio. He completely disregarded the leg kicks because Magny, being a very long fighter, he has a lot of area to hit on those legs. He doesn't check kicks a whole lot. And his defense to everything Ponzinibbio was doing, because he was being pressured the whole fight, Magny was leaning and trying to pull on all the punches of Ponzinibbio. Now, this is a good strategy for a longer fighter in boxing because they have a lot more distance to move back on. Trunk movement or moving with the hips. They can also move with the back foot to gain a little bit more distance away. And they can use their lead hand to post or throw a jab out there. So it's a good strategy by Magny to pull on all the punches of Ponzinibbio, but there's a problem here. He didn't mind the space he was in. He didn't mind the position he was in the cage. He was close to the cage the entire fight. So he only has so much space to move back with or lean back with until he runs into the cage or leans into the cage, which is blockading him. And he potentially runs into a dead end where Ponzinibbio traps him. And on a power puncher like Ponzinibbio, it's going to be tough to get away from all the strikes, but this is the most important thing. Him pulling on all of Ponzinibbio's punches, he was getting slammed with leg kicks. Because what happens when you lean back on punches? Your lead leg is always exposed. Every single time. That's why it's a lot harder to use in MMA than it is in boxing. And Ponzinibbio saw this, right? So Magny, when he leans back, he's putting all the weight on his back leg and disregarding his front leg. Ponzinibbio is setting up those leg kicks behind jabs or just faking. And there was a point in the fight where Ponzinibbio feinted 3 times. 3 times in a row. What was Magny's response on every single feint? Pull back. Lean back with his hips every single time. Now his leg was already compromised by then. It was already badly damaged. So the more damage his leg was getting, the more reliable the lean was for him, right? Because he can't put weight on his front leg. It's too painful. And if he does, it can give out on him. So a lot of his weight was going on the back leg. So now it's even a more natural motion to lean away from his punches and lean away from Ponzinibbio in general, which opens up leg kicks even more. And I believe if Ponzinibbio was going for leg kicks more often, he could have finished the fight earlier. Right? He was really patient, sticking to a set game plan and not driving away from it. It shows his experience. He is a veteran in the game and he learns from all his mistakes in the past. Right? He was always known before as a very pressuring, aggressive fighter. Now he's being that pressuring fighter, but knowing when to explode, knowing when to not explode, knowing when it's not necessary to force on more offense. Another thing that shows he doesn't get carried away with his aggression is whenever he dropped Magny with those leg kicks, he never followed him to the ground. I mean, we can't say the same for a lot of these MMA fighters. We saw Andre Sukumtat when he fought Sean O'Malley, following O'Malley to the ground every single time when O'Malley's leg was injured. Ponzinibbio knew what he was doing. He knew Magny can't stand on that leg, and Magny can't put any offense forward because of that lead leg. If he goes and steps forward with a punch, there's going to be very little power in that punch because of the spring is off the lead leg, and he can't put much weight on it. So even when he steps forward and throws a punch, there's still a lot of weight on his back leg. And if you're throwing a punch with a lot of weight on your back leg, you're taking away a lot of the power generating forward. Now, I just want to make a point here. It's not completely relevant in this fight. There were some cases where Neil Magny was using this, but leaning with your jab forward instead of stepping forward with it. Neil Magny did that sometimes, but it couldn't be helped because he was being pressured and he was up against the cage, right? And Ponzinibbio was in mid-range, inside kicking range, and right on long boxing range, sitting there for his openings to come on the inside of Magny. So my point is, it's always better to throw a jab stepping forward than leaning forward, right? Because when you step forward, you're occupying a space in front of you with your lead foot. And after that, you can bounce back. So you occupy for the jab to cover more distance, and then you retract your step back into your original position. So there's a lot of distance you're covering, but then there's a lot of distance you're moving away from your opponent with, which makes it a lot harder for people to counter you with their punches. So Magny, when he's leaning forward and throwing a jab and tries to lean back on the counter shot of Ponzinibbio, it's not a lot of distance he's covering back and forth. So when you're leaning forward and then you lean back on the counter shot of Ponzinibbio, your leg also gets exposed and you're still in a space where you can get countered. Now again, this isn't the most relevant thing. It's a good point to make when you see Magny. Maybe you're thinking, why was Magny leaning with his punches rather than stepping forward? Again, Ponzinibbio was a little bit too close for Magny to step forward. That is also a disadvantage for such a taller fighter and a longer fighter, where if he's getting pressured and the shorter fighter is in that distance where Ponzinibbio's in, you can't really step forward a whole lot and not pay for it. You're getting right into close range danger zone of the shorter fighter, right? And he can't really lean back or step back a whole lot because he's up against the cage. But just a point I wanted to make. So excellent fight for Ponzinibbio. I mean, he displayed excellence here. So many perfect moments for him. This was a fight that really showed how good Ponzinibbio is and how dangerous he is. You got to throw this guy up there. He's been fighting for a while. He's on I believe a 7-win streak, the second longest in the division, behind Kamaru Usman. So it's time. Give Ponzinibbio a top contender. Give him a top 5 opponent. So I can't wait to see what his next fight is. I think a fight with Damian Maia would be fun for him. The winner of Kamaru Usman versus RDA, a logical choice. Stephen Thompson's there as well. The winner of Robbie Lawler versus Ben Askren. There's a lot of good opponents up there in the top ranks. He's ranked number 10. He beat the number 8. I have a feeling he's going to leapfrog Damian Maia as well to number 7. So I hope you guys enjoyed this breakdown. And if you did, make sure to give it a thumbs up. If you enjoyed my content, make sure to subscribe. For my next video, it's gonna be my podcast. Could be my weight cut research video. If not, it's gonna be my podcast. And then after that, it's going to probably be my prediction video. Then probably my weight cut video. Then the breakdown of this weekend's card. So again, thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.